Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and we're here back again at the original PlayStation for something that, I didn't think this could get any better, and it did. This time around, we are partially going to be revisiting tonyhax, but we're also going to be introducing something new in the form of FreePSXBoot. Now, FreePSXBoot, in short, will allow you to install an application to the memory card and really use the memory card in a way in order to pop it into your original PlayStation, go to the memory card section, and as opposed to this menu coming up, instead you will be greeted with either the tonyhax backup loader or you will be greeted with UniROM depending on what you install. Don't worry, we're going to be going over the both of them today. But in short, that means, just like with tonyhax, you are now able to essentially softmod your original PlayStation and pop in a import or backup disc to play without needing any kind of tricks to swap the disc, without having to block a laser, without having to install a mod chip. And some people might even think UniROM sounds familiar, and it's because I covered it a few years ago on this channel. However, that method did require a parallel port and a parallel cartridge to install UniROM onto to then boot up our games that we wanted to load. This is going to be different because it's all on the memory card as opposed to hunting down a parallel IO cartridge and getting an older PS1 with the parallel IO port on the back. It's all on the memory card this time around. I cannot stress it enough. Oh, and one last thing, as opposed to the previous method we showed of tonyhax where that required a game, this is not going to require a game. So really you have your memory card turned into a bootable device at that point. Now there will be a few differences compared to what I have covered before in terms of mod chips, UniROM, and even tonyhax. Yeah, you can still use the previous method of tonyhax I covered, but you can now also use that with FreePSXBoot. And let's go ahead and get into compatible consoles, and this is going to be assuming you're wanting to utilize this to boot up a backup or an import PS1 game on your PlayStation. First of all, you do need an original PlayStation console, but unlike the previous iteration of tonyhax, or really the one that uses the memory card saves itself, this is only going to work on the original PlayStation. I have tried it for myself. I have a previous episode of Mod Chat in which I went over this if you really want to try it out on a PS2, but I promise you it's not going to do anything. It's going to soft crash your PlayStation 2 and you will not be able to do anything with the system. This does not work on the PlayStation 2. We will use a PlayStation 2 to install this, but you cannot utilize this method on the PlayStation 2 at all. Now that we have that out of the way, there's also a select amount of PlayStations that can work with this. First of all, this does work on both the original fat PlayStation and the PS1 Slim, or PS1 or PlayStation Slim, whatever you want to call it. However, when it comes to regions, if again you are trying to boot up import and backup discs, this works on every European PlayStation 1, meaning a PAL console, and this works on every North American PlayStation 1, meaning NTSC-U consoles. However, this will not work on NTSC-J PlayStation 1 consoles. So if you have a Japanese PlayStation 1, this is not going to work for you. So now that we have compatibility out of the way, let's talk about prerequisites. First of all, you are going to need, of course, as I said, a compatible PlayStation, which I just went into. And for this method here, I'm going to be utilizing a PlayStation 2. Yes, I know I said that the PlayStation 2 is not compatible, but the PlayStation 2 is going to be probably the easiest and most accessible option at the same time that people will be able to use to transfer over a memory card image. As opposed to copying over a few saves, we're going to be re-imaging an entire memory card. So you are going to need two PlayStation 1 memory cards. You're going to need one for FreePSXBoot, and you're going to need another one for your actual game saves, because you will not be able to use saves on that FreePSXBoot memory card. Again, assume that you won't be able to make use of this card anymore. Just assume that it's going to be a bootable device of sorts, and that's all there is to it. In addition to that, with the PlayStation 2, you will also need a method of booting homebrew, which means that you're probably going to need a memory card with something such as FunTuna, OpenTuna, FreeMcBoot, even free hard drive boot. Any of those methods will work as long as you have a method of booting up Homebrew on the PlayStation 2. You're also going to need a USB flash drive so we can transfer over the files that we need. And finally, for utilizing all of this here, it would be best to do it all on a PC, like what I'm going to be doing, just a computer that you have that you can access. So with all of that available, again, our PlayStation 2, our memory cards, and now at the computer, let's go ahead and move over there and get this all set up. So again, I'm going to show you both that you can set up here. There's going to be FreePSXBoot, and there's also going to be tonyhax. Both of these install the same way, and they can do different things. With FreePSXBoot, you're going to get UniROM, which has a lot of nice features that if you want to get into them all here, like the usage and such, and seeing what's available, you're more than welcome to do so. And I would even encourage just giving this a good once over, just so you understand what's going on here. But if you're more visual like me, watching the video one time through will probably help just to figure out what is going on here before you attempt this. However, we are going to highlight the warnings right here, stating that by flashing FreePSXBoot to your memory card, you will need to be aware of the 3 following things. First of all, these are MCD images that replace the whole contents of your memory card, meaning that your memory card will be entirely wiped after flashing a MCD image, so creating a backup of your saves is compulsory. So do not do this with a memory card that has non-backed up saves that you actually care about. It is stated right here that because the exploit has corrupt memory card file system on purpose for it to run, your card will become unusable for normal operations, which is exactly why I said you're going to need 2 original PlayStation memory cards, one to use for saving and one to use for FreePSXBoot. And of course, it states here that it's also going to crash the PlayStation 2 console. And lastly, for anybody who's wanting to uninstall this, which I will show you a method of uninstalling this near the end of this video here, it states once installed, it may become difficult to uninstall as the normal software to reformat a memory card won't work due to the exploit itself. And it does recommend a few options such as memory card Arduino, UniROM, or using the MemCard Pro if you have one of those. I don't have that here, I'm just going to be using a standard memory card, but do keep in mind that there is a chance you, in your situation, you might not be able to uninstall it from your card. I'd recommend at one point, if you're interested at all, going over the options for restoring the memory card so you know what is available. I am going to show, again, a certain method using a piece of homebrew software burned to a disk, but you might want to use one of these right here. So now let's get to downloading from the FreePSXBoot page, which this is going to be down below in the description, as well as with everything else. You can go to the GitHub page and click on releases and download the latest release here. Now you will need to find which exact version is going to work for your system. So what you'll need to do is grab the original PlayStation that you're performing this on and look for the model number on the back of it. So I know that my system is a SCPH 7501. So I'm going to come over here to models and I'm going to scroll down until I find SCPH 7501. Here we go. And this means that I have a 4.1 BIOS, and I'm going to need to download this exact image right here. And this is precise to the console model itself, so do keep that in mind. Unlike the previous save game version of tonyhax, which works on, all systems once you have it set up and it depends on a game, this is kind of the opposite. It does not depend on a game, but it depends on the exact system you're running it on. So for example, when I set this up with mine, it's going to work on these 5 models of or 6 models of the original PlayStation, but I will not be able to use this on my PS1 Slim, for example. So what you can do is you can grab this file name right here, right click, copy, and just to make it simple, you can do a Control F to find in page, paste it right there, and then look for the next one, and this is the exact file that I need to download. Yours is probably going to be different, especially if you're using a different version, but download the MCD file which works for your system. Now for tonyhax, if you decide to use tonyhax, you can come to the GitHub repository for this, of course. you can go to releases, and this will require you to download a single zip file. Just download the latest build of tonyhax. For installing, I'm going to be using a PlayStation 2 using OpenTuna, and I will be using the application Memory Card Annihilator, which will probably work best for most people. So again, link is down below for this. You can just download right here. So let's also get our USB drive set up. For this, we are going to need a USB drive, which is formatted to either FAT or FAT32. And the files we're going to be using are incredibly small, so you do not need a large drive at all. Just get really the smallest USB drive you have lying around. And what we can do is set this up. So if you have any data that you care about on this drive, be sure to back it up. And then if you need to format it, well, we can check first. We can right click, at least if you're on Windows, go to Properties, and as you can see, mine is already set to FAT32. But if you need to format it, again, back up all your data, close out of this, we can right click, format, and for our file system, either FAT or FAT32. I'm just going to recommend FAT32. Quick format is fine. Hit OK. And there we go. It's been formatted. So at this point here, we can go into the USB drive. Now grab your FreePSXBoot.mcd file, copy and paste it to the root of the USB drive, just like that. Now for our other programs here, let's first get MC Annihilator. So I'm going to right click and extract that here. It should create its own MC Annihilator folder. You can just right click, copy this, go into your USB drive, and paste it right there. Finally, we're also going to need to go through tonyhax, which I'll right click and extract into its own folder. When you go into the tonyhax directory, there's going to be a FreePSXBoot directory, which is what we need. Go in here, and this is going to be much simpler, thankfully, but this will depend on your BIOS version. So this is pretty easy to check. If you have already checked your system and verified it, for example, right here, we already know my FreePSXBoot is for BIOS 4.1. So from here, you can now cross-reference it to tonyhax and find the version of BIOS that will work for your version. So since my console has a 4.1 BIOS, I'm going to grab the tonyhax BIOS v4.1 MCD, copy that out, and paste it along with everything else right here. Now I showed you how to copy the both these over, but some people might be asking, why do I need the both of these? Can I use the both of these? Well, you can't use both of them at the same time on the same card, and I'm just showing the setup for both of them here. But if you have to choose one, my general recommendation would be, if all you care about is just backing up your own games and playing import titles, if that's all you want to do, you just want to pop in a disc and play, tonyhax will probably be the better option for you compared to UniROM. I especially like tonyhax here because there are constant anti-piracy patches, for anti-mod chip games that are being added, like for example, Biohazard Gun Survivor. We can look down here, there's some more for Resident Evil Survivor, Poppin' Music 2 and 3, Legend of Dragoon, Rockman 5. You can see it all right here. There's a lot of specific game patches that are being added to tonyhax, which I believe will benefit many people. However, whichever one you want to choose is going to be completely up to you, and both of these install the exact same way. So we're going to go ahead and set this up here. If you're all ready to go, right click on your USB drive, safely eject it, and then take it over to your PlayStation 2. Pop in your PlayStation 2 memory card, your PlayStation 1 memory card, as well as your USB drive all in the PlayStation 2, then turn it on. Once it turns on, you can come over to the browser. And again, one thing I would recommend is going to your PlayStation memory card and checking to see if there are any game saves that you need to back up. If there's any game saves you care about, you can copy and paste them to another PlayStation 1 memory card that you have, but I'll also show you how you can back up your own memory card. So now that we're all ready to go, we can go ahead and launch our exploit for the PS2 however we want to. Again, I'm going to be using OpenTuna for this, and we just want to get into ULaunchElf or WLaunchElf. If you need to get your PlayStation 2 modified, I do have videos showing how to install FreePSXBoot, as well as something such as FunTuna. But either way, once you get your ULaunch or WLaunchElf up and running, you can go down to Mass and press Circle. Now go into MC Annihilator, press Circle. Go down to mcav20.elf and press Circle to launch this piece of homebrew. Now from here, you'll need to go over to the PlayStation 1 memory card, press X, And one thing I would recommend if you have any data you care about is to create an MC image. So for this, we can go down to create MC image, press X, go into mass 0, and press start here. That is all fine. You can name this whatever you want. Again, this is just to back up your PS1 memory card in case you have anything that you care about, and give it a few seconds to back up. Once that's done, you can press X, and now go back to the PlayStation 1 memory card. From here, you can click on Restore MC Image, press X, go to Mass 0, press X, and now you need to press the L2 or R2 button. And once you do that, you'll be able to select your MCD image. So again, the install is going to be the same for either of these. If you want to use FreePSXBoot or tonyhax, that is completely up to you. But for this first one, I'll go ahead and use FreePSXBoot. I'm going to say yes. And now at this point, it is wiping our original PlayStation memory card. Once that process has been completed, you can press X. And there we go. So this is all done. At this point now, we can turn off the PlayStation 2, unplug our original PlayStation memory card, and plug it into slot 1 of the original PlayStation. Now over at your original PlayStation, plug your FreePSXBoot modified memory card into slot 1, make sure there's no disk in the disk drive, and turn on the console. You should come to the main menu right here. An important thing to note as well, if you have one of the very first original PlayStations, meaning a 1000 model with the RCA ports in the back, so the yellow, white, and red inputs, you will need to plug in both memory cards for this. You'll need to have your FreePSXBoot card in slot 1, and you'll need to have another memory card for game saves in slot 2. For all others, you just need this slot 1 card right now. But either way, you should be at this screen, and once you're ready to run FreePSXBoot, it's very simple. You simply go into memory card, it's going to make your console crash, and you're going to get a screen and a progress bar like this. Just wait a few seconds for this to boot up UniROM. Once UniROM boots up, congratulations, you have FreePSXBoot loaded up and ready to go. At this point now, this is a very important step. You need to physically remove the memory card from slot 1, and you can then replace it with your regular memory card that you use for game saves. But you have to remove the FreePSXBoot card at this point once the program has loaded. If you try and boot up a game with this memory card plugged in, your PlayStation will crash. With your memory card swapped over, you can press the start button, and you'll have a lot of nice little options right here. Now, the only one that I'm going to be covering here is going to be boot CD. So we can go into boot CD, and you'll have a few options for play, which is simple enough, boot NTSC to PAL, so forcing PAL, or even vice versa, forcing to NTSC. Now at this point, we can go ahead, open up our disk drive, pop in our backup or import game, and close it up. And now with your disk popped in, press the X button on play. It's going to give you some text right here, and just wait a few seconds for this to boot up. For this demonstration, I'm using Persona 2 Innocent Sin, which is a Japanese game, an original Japanese imported game, booting up on my American PlayStation. And as you can see, it's been able to boot up and it's working just fine right here. It only took a few seconds to load up, and the process really isn't all too bad. Now, if you use tonyhax, you will need to turn on your original PlayStation with the tonyhax memory card plugged into slot 1 and no disk in the drive, bringing you to the main menu. At this point, you will also need, if you have one of the 1000 models, the very first PlayStation that came out with the yellow, white, and red RCA jacks in the back, you'll need to plug in 2 memory cards. One in slot 1 with tonyhax with the FreePSXBoot mod on there, and another one in your second memory card slot for your game saves. That's only for the original 1000 models. All others, you just need this card in slot 1. Now, in order to boot up tonyhax, just the same as before, you go into memory card, press X, and wait a few moments. It's going to crash your system on purpose, and it's going to look a little something like this. It's thankfully pretty quick, but at this point, you now need to remove the memory card from slot 1, which contains tonyhax. This is very important. You need to remove it or else it will crash your system. And then you can pop in your regular memory card that you use for saves. Now with your memory card swapped over, it's pretty easy. You just pop open the disk drive, pop in your backup or import game that you'd like to play, close it up, and then wait. It's not going to do anything else that requires input. It's just going to take a few seconds to show the text right here, and then your game should boot up momentarily. Just like before, as you can see, I'm firing up Persona 2 Innocent Sin. This is a Japanese game running on my North American PlayStation with no issue, thankfully. And we're even in game right here. Beautiful. It's as easy as that. So that's why I also recommend, if all you're wanting to do is pop in a disc and play, you're not one to care about any of the other features or installing UniROM or what have you, that's why I recommend using tonyhax, because literally all you can do is pop in a disc and boot it up. And that's what most people are wanting to do. Now, what if you want to use your memory card, well, like an actual memory card, or if you want to update your tonyhax or change over to FreePSXBoot or what have you? As you can see, if I fire up the memory card here, using my regular memory card, I'm able to get in just fine, but I cannot do this with my modified memory card. Well, I'm going to show you how you can remove the modification if you want to for whatever reason. Thankfully, this step just needs the original PlayStation, but do keep in mind, again, this is going to uninstall it from that memory card. The piece of software that I use here is PSX Memory Card Formatter, which, as it says here, use this tool to format, unformat your PlayStation 1 memory card. It's extremely simple. You can download this zip file and extract it wherever you need to. Now, the difference here is that this is actually a piece of software we need to burn to a disk and boot up on the PlayStation. So for this, you will need a CDR, and you're also going to need to burn it. I'm going to be using image burn for this. When you download the program, it's going to come in the zip, as I said. Just right click and you can extract it to its own folder. In this folder, there's two files, the ISO and a readme.txt, which you can read if you'd like to. This is really just explaining the same thing and saying he's not responsible for any data loss, which is certainly fine. Now you want to fire up image burn and click on write image file to disk. Make sure you have your burner available and you've put a blank CD in there. Now click on please select a file and browse for a file. Navigate over to where you save the ISO, double click that, there we go. And at this point, what I usually recommend is writing at the slowest speed possible. This burner, the slowest speed here is going to be 16x, so you can set it to 16x or lower. Even if you set it to a lower speed like this, it's going to default to the lowest speed possible, but that's just what I recommend. From here, you can just click on burn and wait a few seconds for it to finish. Now, ironically, you can actually use FreePSXBoot or tonyhax to boot up this disk, especially if you're trying to remove it from there. So I have my memory card plugged in. I'm going to go to the memory card option, wait a few seconds here, and tonyhax should come up. At this point, just follow the exact same steps as before to boot up your disk. Pop the disk in, wait a few seconds for it to initialize. And right here, it should bring up this super simple menu. Now, for whatever reason, if this displays kind of odd on your screen, it might be with a PAL game displaying on an NTSC screen. It's really simple. You just need to press the X button to format the card in slot 1 and wait a few seconds. Once it says format card 1 OK, it's done. You turn off the system and you can turn it back on. So turning on the system here yet again, and if I come over to memory card, you'll see that I can go in here and I'm able to load it up just fine. And I promise you there's a card in slot 1, but there's nothing showing up here because I have formatted the memory card. So there we go. That is about it for this video. This is truly a dream come true at this point, where it's actually exactly what I had wanted, where I was wanting just for years and years to have something where you could simply put a piece of software on a memory card, figure out a way to boot it from there, and really have your soft mod available for the PlayStation 1, and it's so awesome that we have it at this point. I would like to, of course, give a shout out and a thank you to Brad Lynn, the person behind FreePSXBoot, at least the initial implementation of it, as well as Sokram8888, whose work we have, of course, covered before using tonyhax, but it's just so awesome and really great to be able to revisit it here yet again. So there we go. That is about it. Hopefully your PlayStation is soft modded. Hopefully this video helps out, and if it did, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone.